This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone. Good Sunday morning to you all. It's the Sunday stream, the stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. Beautiful, bright, and actually sunny Sunday morning. Also, it's Mother's Day. Have you called your mother today? Or have you done something in honor of your mother today? Well, if you haven't, you should. My mother, I think I mentioned this in a previous stream, my mother this year asked my sister and I that instead of getting her a gift directly for Mother's Day, excuse me, that we donate to a cause that helps people in her name. And so likewise, I made a donation to my favorite charity, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of America. And I'm not quite sure what Sister Scribe donated to. I know she did. I just can't remember the name of it right now. It was like some charitable organization of some kind or another. I would plug it here if I could remember, but I don't remember. So on the chance that she's listening, she could tell me. But oh well. Anyway, if you haven't already, in some way, shape, or form, paid tribute to your mother, either directly or otherwise, please consider doing so. It's a nice thing to do. But before I get into today's topic of conversation, or discussion, or paneling, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday, Mother's Day Sunday morning? If I can find my words, boy, oh boy. It's like I've been up for a couple hours now. My brain is still waking up. Miranda Stone, good morning. Dax Orion, sorry, Dax the Vengeful, because apparently I ignored Dax the last time. Dax is a delicate flower, needs reassurance. Dax the Vengeful, good morning. Noah Asensio, good morning. Rotten Corpse, good morning. Septus Wolf, good morning. Keeverdam, good morning. And by the way, Keeverdam, thank you so much for posting the fundraiser links. Those are at the top of the chat box, guys, for our friends Moonshock, Angry Illinoisian, and Tracy, friend of Twisted Skipster. In the first two instances, they've experienced some medical hardships that could use some help. And in Tracy's case, she's just trying to keep the lights on. So if you have a couple of bucks to spare, please consider donating there. If you cannot donate, that's perfectly fine. But if you can share those links out on social media, that would be appreciated. One Ton Hammer, good morning. TC, good morning. Who else is here? TF good morning. Chicago Mike, good morning. Mike Savage, Blur, JMK, good morning. Derek LaRue, thank you, as always. Thank you for your generosity and support. I wish I had the words. You know I don't, but hopefully whatever words I say today will have earned your generosity. Thank you so much. Brittany Holland, good morning. Shadowclaw, good morning. Who else is here? Tall Person, good morning. Citron, good morning. A2P, good morning. Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. And then chat jump because, of course, it did. Green Badger Outdoors, good morning. Megan Ring, good morning. Let's see. Spoonie the Rebel, good morning. Kay Scholl, good morning. Seftus Wolf, good morning. If I didn't already say good morning. St. Michael, good morning. And if I missed you, if you're lurking or if you're in the future, good morning. All right. So today, as you may or may not know, the Writers Guild of America is currently on strike. This is a whole Hollywood union negotiation back and forth kind of thing with the writers making a whole bunch of demands that Hollywood is, for the most part, not willing to concede to, and back and forth. And as a result, a whole bunch of productions get shut down or put on pause, and millions of dollars are being lost a day, and on and on and on. It's chaos, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. But in the meantime, apparently, the Producers Guild of America put out a little panel discussion live stream the other day about leadership and diversity in entertainment. And boy, howdy, you know I love myself some diversity. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, a warning, I haven't watched this, but I did have to listen to a little bit of it in order to boost the audio and things. It is a Zoom call, so your mileage is going to vary in audio quality speaker to speaker. So there's that. I didn't check it too much for introductory, like often with these things, they'll go over like 5 or 6 minutes of talking about their associations, activities and other things. And I try to cut those out if I can, because it's not relevant to it, but I think it's relatively brief. So I didn't make any cuts on this, but if for any reason you'd like to watch the whole panel discussion in its entirety, link is in the description. Okay. Now, the important thing about this is that this discussion is populated with some real bigwigs from some big companies. We got Netflix, we got Amazon Prime. Let's see, there's I guess those are the two big ones, at least that I know of off the top of my head. Amazon Prime and Netflix. Big executives talking about diversity and leadership in entertainment. So, with all that as preamble, let's begin. Now, the whole thing goes around about an hour and a half. I'm only going to be going for about an hour and a half in real time, unless there is some compelling reason to go further. So, keep a clock on that, and we'll see where we go. So, there you go. Here's the introduction. Let's listen to some sound. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. That sound all right? Let me know in the chat, and I'll check and see if there's anybody else here that I missed in the meantime. Let's see. Dr. Funkenstein's Ghost, if I didn't already say good morning. And does, let's see. Did I say Tyr is in here? Did somebody say that Tyr Alexander's in here? Well, if I didn't already say hello to Tyr. Hello, Tyr. 5x5 says JMK. Yes, says Miranda Stone. I'll take that as a sounds good. Sounds good, says Kiever Dam. All right, here we go.
Thank you for joining us for the Producer Guild's 2023 AAPI Heritage Month presentation of the live panel, Leadership and Diversity in Entertainment.
Leadership and Diversity by the AAPI, so Asian American Pacific Islander. So a ethnocentric organization or collective on diversity. Okay.
This panel is presented to you by the PGA's Asian American and Pacific Islanders Working Group. This group was created as part of One Guild's initiative in supporting inclusive membership.
Inclusive membership if you pass the racial ethnicity test, I guess.
Employment, content, and depictions.
Ah.
My name is Sybil Raimundo Santiago. I'm one of the very proud co-leads of this group, serving along with members Quentin Lee and Alan Chu, along with Jonathan Wong. And on behalf of all our members, welcome today. This panel is brought to you live, and we encourage you, our audience, to post your questions for our esteemed panelists on the Q&A button below.
Oh man, I wish I'd caught it live. I never know when these things are going to happen because there's no way to tell. I'm always curious because you have these very niche YouTube channels with very small subscriber counts, but they represent large organizations. And then they put on events like this. I assume they're notifying somebody on a mailing list or a chat room or something. But I always wondered how much turnout do they actually get in their live Q&A when you don't know about these things till after they've happened most of the time.
And we will try to get through as many of them as time allows us. It is my privilege today to introduce our moderator.
Privilege? If only we had a bingo card.
An impact entrepreneur and new world builder. He is the president and co-founder of Gold House, the premier collective of Asian founders, creative voices, and leaders. And he is also general partner and co-founder of the AUM Group, a multicultural film fund, and serves as the board director and advisor to several leading digital companies that includes Google's Global Marketing Group, Snap's Yellow Incubator, and more.
Snap's Yellow Incubator? Okay.
Prior to these, he was YouTube's global head of creator development and management. Please join us in welcoming Bing Chen.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Thank you so much today, Bing. Mike is yours.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Sybil. Thank you so much again, Quentin, Alan, Diana, and the rest of the PGA team. We feel so lucky today to have such an esteemed, diverse panel of producers, as well as production and studio executives.
Well, diverse as long as you fall within a racial, ethnic category. But I know I keep harping on that, but replace that with if this was the Germanic organization or something. How much outcry there would be over something like that, but okay.
I'm going to begin in semi-alphabetical order, and I was also challenged to introduce.
Then not alphabetical. Like semi-alphabetical, is that like being a little pregnant or something? Like what?
Our panelists through haikus, and so.
Whoa, wait, wait, back up. Sorry, what? What was that part? Sorry, let me.
Here today, Bing. Mike is yours.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me, Sybil. Thank you so much again, Quentin, Alan, Diana, and the rest of the PGA team. We feel so lucky today to have such an esteemed, diverse panel of producers, as well as production and studio executives. I'm going to begin in semi-alphabetical order, and I was also challenged to introduce our panelists through haikus. And
Introduce the panelists through haikus. Okay.
So we'll do that. First, let's begin with Albert Chang, the head of Amazon Prime Video for the United States.
Whoa, head of Amazon Prime Video. Okay, I knew it was Amazon. I didn't know it was quite that high on the chain. Okay.
His haiku is digital maven at forefront of inclusion, Eagle Scout of Scouts.
Okay. Inclusion. Yes.
I've known Albert since I was 17, and he truly is one of the greatest digital mavens imaginable. He's the first person to put a linear TV show on anything digital, an app or otherwise, the first to have a digital live broadcast through an app, so forth and so on.
To have a digital live broadcast on an app. What was the app?
Amazon Studios, we also have to mention, was the first platform to win a major award for a series as well in 2015. So well.
Was it? I mean, maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't know. Like Netflix or anybody else got a major award. I don't know.
Welcome, Albert. He's also an Eagle Scout of Scouts. This man is incorruptible and the kindest person. Okay. Next is going to be Ginny Howe, the head of original series at Netflix. Her haiku is behind biggest shows while ensuring inclusion, also has it all.
Okay, so she's head of original programming, original content. Yeah, and how successful is most of that Netflix content? I mean, Netflix to me these days, every time I go on the homepage, I'm looking at it and I can't help but imagine that I'm looking at the front panel of a red box, because there's all these shows and movies and things that I've never heard of before, I'll never hear about again. Netflix more and more looks like a bargain bin. It looks like stuff that couldn't get produced in Hollywood and was just sort of put to the side, and Netflix paid money for it. And are they getting any return out of most of it? You know, when the only series I hear about from Netflix are like Wednesday and Stranger Things, and it's different, or back in the day, Daredevil. Like I can think of individual shows, but then you think about just how many Netflix has on its platform, and it's like such a glut of unwatched, useless stuff. But okay, that's just my Netflix opinion. I don't know why I still subscribe to Netflix. It's worth it for like maybe a handful of shows and options, or if I'm really bored. Maybe that's their business model now. I don't know.
Ginny is one of my new favorite people because not only is she actually behind the most watched shows, and she and I can compete about that in a moment, but she's also shown us how identity is a strength and actually leads to commercially and critically acclaimed properties.
Oh, identity. Right. Great. Identitarianism, everybody. Great. It's not the quality of the programming, it's the identity. All right.
She also in our first last chat mentioned that she's also, of course, an incredible mom. So apparently
she mentioned she's an incredible mom. All right. Well, I mean, all right.
Can have it all. So welcome, Ginny. Next is going to be Shruti Ganguly, producer. Shruti's haiku is Renaissance woman, super global producer, everywhere often.
I mean, the haikus are cute, but they just feel a little cringy. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Shruti and I just recently met. Shruti is literally at every fancy thing imaginable, whether it's at some gala with Huma Abedin or producing the next great project.
Huma Abedin? Was she there with Anthony Weiner at the time? I hear they're back together again. They've been seen out in public again. Oh, Huma. Oh, poor choices in life, Huma.
Or at Paramount with Pri Chopra and all the things everywhere all at once. And it's also just a delight, and also, dare I say, the best dressed every time, despite probably living out of a suitcase. Speaking of everything everywhere, let's end last but certainly never least, Jonathan Wong, which of course is pronounced Wong and not Wang, if you want to follow him on Instagram. Jonathan.
Okay, well, let's get the pronunciations right. We wouldn't want to offend anybody.
Haiku is Oscar producer, married rocket scientist, Perfect Taiwanese. Jonathan is, of course, the Academy Award-winning producer behind Everything Ever All at Once. If you have not seen his interviews about how he was able to engineer so many of the extremely complex scenes, you have to do so.
I still haven't seen that movie. Is it any good? Anybody in the chat? I mean, I know the hype is through the roof, but I don't know if it's actually any good or if it's fueled mostly on hype.
His wife Ani is an actual genius, and so not that he is not. And so well done on marrying up Jonathan. And then, of course, like all of us who are perfect, he is also Taiwanese. So let's begin.
All of us who are perfect, he's also Taiwanese. Yeah, I know it's a joke, but given the fact that we're talking about diversity and inclusion, but we're also focusing on identity, is it really a joke? Hard to say.
We're going to start with a lot of personal work because so many of you, actually all of you, really hit the apex of the industry, not just in what's possible in an industry, but defining it. So let's start with some sort of personal soft stuff and we'll go from there. The first question, we're going to go in reverse order, is why did you want to join entertainment and what was your first job in the industry? I'll also remind everyone we have a lot to cover, so please be as succinct as possible. Academy Award-winning producer Jonathan Wong.
Okay, well, first off, credit to the moderator for asking a question and instead of letting it hang in the air and just wait for somebody to answer, he's going through very methodically, identifying who's going to talk and everything like that. We've seen, as you guys know, we've seen too many panel discussions where somebody's all happy and excited to talk to everybody and they put a question out there, then they sort of let it sit and everybody's too polite to start to step on each other's toes. This is what a moderator is supposed to do. You moderate the conversation and direct it bit by bit to be as efficient as possible. This is something that I've had to learn as well. Yeah, so credit there.
You first.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here in conversation with all of you. I'll be fast. I started in entertainment like right out of high school. I started playing music in a band and started touring while in college. And I knew I wanted to be in entertainment mainly because I wanted to be able to influence culture.
You wanted to influence culture. Interesting goal.
And music wasn't right for me. So I transitioned into music videos, met these weird dudes named Daniels, and then we started making movies, and the rest is kind of history.
Goal to influence culture. I don't know. When I think of somebody who's like an artist, I think of someone who's, well, I mean, I suppose it depends on what your thought is on your own talents or what you're trying to contribute to the world and everything. Sounds a little, I don't know, a little pretentious, but maybe that's just me. I'm not much of an artist, so.
That is a great producer who is on time and under budget. Well done. Shruti, let's go to you next.
Well, I also just very quickly have to preface it by saying I am a producer. I'm also a director, and I'm a member of the WGA.
The WGA? You mean currently on strike? Are you on strike?
And so when I'm sharing anything here, it is from the perspective of a director and a producer, but I stand in solidarity.
Yeah, you can't say that you're here as a writer because that might be violating rules or something.
With my fellow writers at this moment. So I moved to the US for undergrad. I'm from India and I grew up in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And when I moved to the US, I wanted to go into banking. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I had a personal tragedy that I think really made me rethink my life choices and had this moment of, I have to figure out what I really love doing and be brave enough to try it. And that's when I started shifting and I tried consulting, did advertising, and then I took the class that changed my life, which was a class called Women in Indian Cinema.
I have a lot more appreciation for someone who's gone through a whole bunch of different stages in life and gone through several careers. So they actually possess an informed variety of perspectives on things. That always is a more compelling story to me than someone that just sort of like, this is the one thing I've done the entire time. But I guess, to each their own.
A junior at Northwestern at the time. And the first movie we watched was a Satyajit Ray film, and I'm half Bengali, and that movie spoke really deeply and personally to me. And then I understood the impact cinema could have and how to tell these incredibly specific, powerful stories and bring them to a world stage and how to change people's lives. And so that was my commitment to the entertainment business. Don't ask me yet about how I got my visa and all of that to be in this industry. that'll take a longer time.
Yes, because there's a lot of hoops to jump through to legally come to the United States. And I appreciate people who follow the rules, if you know what I mean.
So thank you.
We're doing that now with my wife, green card. So I'm in that hell right now.
Yeah, it's called bureaucracy and following the rules. And yeah, no, I know, at least peripherally, I know that it's not fun and it's complicated, but it's necessary.
This will be the second therapy session. Ginny.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm incredibly impressed with how quickly we're able to put those haikus together. It's mind blowing. Yes, for me, I was fortunate enough to live close enough to Los Angeles. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley. My parents had big dreams for me to be a doctor and a lawyer, if not that, a pharmacist and a dentist. And I knew so deeply in my soul those were not my callings. And I had some friends who.
And by the way, again, as I said, since they're all on a Zoom call, everybody's sound and reception is going to vary. So that roboting is her from the original source.
Had family who were crew and production, and I just understood it was such a viable business, even though it felt very far away from me at the time. I grew up watching a lot of television as a latchkey kid. It was sort of always around and my window into the world outside. And my first job, and I went to UCLA and I interned everywhere. I had a lot of curiosity about wanting to be in casting or marketing.
You're supposed to keep this concise.
Worked on set, so my first job was actually because I knew I wanted to produce in some capacity at a talent management company called Burlstein Gray at the time. And I wanted to go into either an agency or a management company, but I knew managers were able to produce. So that was the path that I took.
Okay, that wasn't too bad.
Very good. And Albert.
Yeah, it's really similar to Ginny. I think when I was a kid, you're super influenced by movies and TV.
Oh man, his webcam's terrible, or at least the microphone's terrible.
It's a major part of my childhood growing up, and it's always a dream of how do I be a part of that. And like a lot of Asian kids with Asian parents, this is not the career they really envisioned for you. And I think I spent a good 15 years wrestling with my parents' desires, my own desires, and eventually in some weird Forrest Gump like way wound up in the entertainment industry, just finding opportunities to get in where I can, and then ultimately landed in a job and built a career around that over the last 25 years.
Very good. Let's jump ahead. So the punchline of the question is, how do you get to where you are? And
that's the punchline of the question. How? Well, I would hope hard work, talent, and perseverance. So I think that hopefully applies to most people in high-level positions, but obviously we know it's not always the case. You could always fall upwards. A lot of people do.
And I know this is sort of a long, sort of probably semester-long seminar, but if you were to isolate the 3 skills, jobs, tactics, and so forth that are essential to become who you are one day, what are those 3? And let's go in reverse order again. Albert.
Well, I think my track is a little bit different because I came up through the business track, and every single job that I had was very much business related and worked a lot in the corporate side of studios. Probably up until literally maybe last 5 years, I was more on the creative side and I was co-head of TV. But I would say the things where I got where I was is really focusing on where I was going to be able to add value and how do I exceed adding that value.
Adding value. Okay, good. See, now I keep expecting, since we're talking about diversity, I'm sort of, I guess, preconditioned to be waiting for certain buzzwords or phrases or concepts and everything else, and yet, say for a little wobbly, contradictory notions at the beginning, okay, we're talking about, yes, hard work, dedication, trying to figure out, again, as our speaker here says, add value.
And really focusing on, this is the best thing that I know that I can do, and I'm just going to try to kill it. I mean, and of course, in all these things, I've had a lot of opportunities. And I think part of, I don't know how others' careers have been, I have had many mentors and sponsors and people who've been giving me opportunity, but then making sure when given that opportunity, that was going to make them not regret giving me that opportunity. And so it's just a series of, everyone's taught and raised to be the A+ student. And I would have to say, you got to have to keep being that A+ student wherever you are. And just as long as you're feeling passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. But you just can't fake it. You have to do what you love. You have to do a great job. And it's the consistent work ethic that I think all of us have been raised with. That really is the core of success, whatever you do, whatever this is.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. You don't often hear in discussions about diversity actual merit and hard work. You talk about statistical disparities and things like that, and injustices, or, you know, I was the only one of my kind in the room kind of complaints. So our first speaker, at least in this question, good job.
Very good. Ginny.
I agree. Passion is really important. I think that this is be really challenging at times. I think it has to be something that you feel a burning desire somewhere in your soul to pursue and to persevere. I'll also say that not afraid of having difficult conversations and
difficult conversations. What difficult conversations?
Just, you know, conflict, I think, is just, it's a confrontation. All of this is just natural things that happen when you're making precious things and when you are collaborating with folks. So I have found that that has been very key, just to having really honest, authentic relationships with
authenticity. Okay, so we have difficult and or courageous conversations, Glenn Singleton, and now authenticity. Okay, we got some buzzwords going on here. So having difficult conversations is a key to success, or your personal success. I hope she expands on that. I got a feeling we might not get more details.
Creative partners. And I really just want to echo what Albert said about mentorship. I think, you know, those are such the building blocks. You know, we are still in the process of paving a lot of the pathways for the next generations to come in terms of storytellers in this space. And
storytellers in this space. What space is that?
I feel very fortunate. You know, Bella Bajaria has been someone who has been very much in my corner and has made all the difference for me. And I really do, believe in that. No matter how big or small, you need to have people you look up to and who are looking out for you as well.
Shruti.
Okay, some red flags in rhetoric there. Our first speaker, Albert, great job. Ginny, indicating some things that will sound very familiar. Let's see what happens next.
My three things would be: always be a student. You're always forever learning. When I knew what I wanted to do, I'd say my first education was the Strand bookstore in New York. And then, you know, I was just watching DVD specials of directors. And then I went to NYU for grad school, where I got my MFA in film at Tisch and my MBA at Stern. And I'd say you don't need to go to a film school to be a student.
So personal enrichment, hard work. Yep, good.
This business, but you should always be willing to make adjustments and to grow and to teach yourself. The second thing I would say is don't be transactional. Like, don't become, hustles too many people just for what they can do for you, and really find the people that you can also grow with holistically.
I've heard that doesn't necessarily work in Hollywood, but hey, what do I know?
And build meaningful relationships with those people, because it's a long ride and a long run, and you want to grow with people that you genuinely care about and who also care about you. And then my third thing is protect your spirit. It is an industry that is not for the faint of heart on the creative side. And I think to sustain oneself, you have to kind of, protect yourself with your people, but also give yourself the space to, realize what projects may be not the best fit, or the people that may not be the best fit for you. Because it's, you want to be in the business for a long time and not just for a single project. Seems very shiny.
Right. So you're not having transactional relationships, but you're making investment relationships. All right. Yeah. No, that all sounds reasonable. Okay.
Mr. Wong.
I love the Strand. I go there all the time. It's my favorite. It's in New York. Go and buy your books online from Strand instead of Barnes and Nobles or wherever. But I mean, that's a
Boy, if I had a sales pitch for product or service square out right now, Strand Bookstore apparently would be it.
Good transition into my first thing, which is and what I do, because I am also a creative producer. I like to stay curious. So I'm always reading, I'm always watching, I'm always trying to stay caught up on the zeitgeist so that when these cultural moments happen, we know that's what we need to tell stories about, rather than playing catch up to the stories that are being made, to be like leading in the forefront of the stories to be told.
Oh, so stories for modern audiences rather than like stories that are universal and can stand the test of time. I don't know, these movies and TV shows and things that either make reference to directly or heavily based in a current event kind of thing, and especially depending on how heavy-handed they are with their messaging, it always feels like it's not going to, like I say, stand the test of time. It's going to be locked within a particular period, and it won't be able to evolve or grow along with its audience in either themes or meaning or lessons or narrative. But I guess you strike while the iron's hot, right? Because you're not looking, I guess, at long term. You're looking at immediate gain. Right. So if you make a story or you put something together that's reflective of the current zeitgeist and you cash in on it while it's hot, and then who cares if it's still remembered or relevant 10, 15, 20 years from now? Yeah. It's a kind of business model, sure.
Which is impossible without community. So that's the second one, which is like, be able to find your collaborators. Like, I'm only as good as the people I work with. And I really got lucky to be able to find those people. But it is a skill that I learned how to do, which was just to kind of be a chameleon, and not in a way that I'm phony, but to find other people's interests interesting, to just constantly be curious about other people and want to love those people.
Yeah. Make everybody else feel important. Be a chameleon. Not that I'm being disingenuous, mind you. I'm just, insinuating myself into other people's passions for the sake of collaboration. Okay.
And the third thing that I have to give to my dad, which you can't really learn, it's kind of rote knowledge, I think, was like, I've always been able to see, like, if I do this, I could leverage that to get here and leverage this to get there. And I have this like intuitive sense to beat something to the target. And that has been the biggest thing for me, to just know, like, don't do that project. Don't just chase my tail here. Like, that's the thing to do over there, and that's the thing to do over there. And so it's this kind of like, trust your gut, I guess. But that has been a huge thing for me.
Very good. Let's go to macro trends for a second. And this is for anyone, but we'll make sure that we make our rounds. To be a bit hyperbolic, independent film is going through a really challenging time right now.
When has independent film not been going through a challenging time? That's why they started independent film festivals and everything else, to try to bring those creators to the forefront where they weren't getting any help before. And is anything really independent anymore? I mean, most times when I see, stories from independent film festivals and things, they're usually advertising movies that are either being bought up, produced, or funded by big studios, or they were supported by their subsidiaries, which they don't want you to know are actually attached to giant production studios, and they want to feel independent for the sake of marketing. But actual independent filmmakers, I know a lot of them. A lot of them are on YouTube.
We've seen a lot of the cinema scores for major franchises. They're waning, which people think is consumer demand fatigue. Series, of course, have seen a golden age. But
it might not be consumer demand fatigue. It could be lackadaisical quality in writing and production, because it's just churning out more and more just bland gruel into the process.
Some wonder how long their shelf life might be after sort of their opening weekend or successive openings. My question is, why is this all happening, and where do we go from here?
Well, too much product, low quality, not enough interest. That's it. And hiring people and pushing storylines and product fueled by ideological means and ends and identity politics. That's the trend. That's what's popular in Hollywood right now. That's what feels righteous and virtuous. and it's leading to a whole bunch of nothing and fluff being produced that nobody cares about because there's nothing there for them. That's probably part of it. Okay, now this is where you have to actually identify your speakers. Nobody's going to talk. Moderator, pick somebody.
This is also another semester-long seminar, but as succinctly as possible.
You have to pick someone. No one's going to go first. Everybody's too polite.
Who'd like to try first?
No, dude, you have to identify the just put somebody on the spot. Get it moving. You were doing fine until now. This is what a moderator has to do. Never have a panel discussion and leave a question hanging in the air. Pick somebody.
Let me try it. I think what you're saying. I mean, like we have never been in a moment in time where there's so many different ways to see content.
Yes, there's so many different ways to see content. It's true. Before you had 3 networks and the movie theater, and yeah, so there's a lot of choices. But then you had cable TV with a zillion channels. You could still make a memorable piece of art, despite that.
And back in the old days, when I grew up, there was very few places where you can actually see content, and so there were more hits because the distribution channels were very restricted.
And people were also much more selective in what they greenlit and what they put money behind because they knew they didn't have as many opportunities to try to make money off of things. And so you actually had a winnowing of wheat from the chaff for talent and so on. You could still have a bomb here and there and otherwise, sure, but it also made it far more competitive. Now, like Disney Plus, Amazon, they'll just hire anybody who's like the hottest property, even if they don't have any experience under their belt, say for one independent film or something. I'm thinking specifically of the director of Eternals. I forget her name, Zhao, I think. And she had like one sort of independent film success prior to that. And then they hand her a multi-hundreds of millions of dollars superhero production budget, primarily based on her gender and her ethnicity, and the fact that since she was a new director, she didn't really have a lot of leverage or connections to fight back against any studio meddling on her project. I know I'm being cynical here, and this is just my understanding of things in the outbound of things. But yeah, that seems to be the trend right now. You get some young writer or director who has maybe 1 or 2 interesting credits under their belt, but otherwise is cheap and malleable, and you can just kind of make everything into a mass production of glut. It's nothing. It's fluff. Look at She-Hulk. Look at well, let's see. Now, Andor on Disney Plus, I mean, you actually had an experienced director, showrunner on that. Production quality-wise, writing quality-wise, it was actually better. But unfortunately, Disney Plus had so sullied the Star Wars brand at that point with garbage like Obi-Wan that there was no interest, in the decline in The Mandalorian. Anyway, I could go on, but I'll just
with digital, I mean, you have so many different ways people can see things. YouTube, Netflix, Prime Video, on HBO Max, whatever channel there is. The distribution methodologies are just so wide, and people's attention spans are really short. And so I think it's really hard to get the same enduring big hits franchises. Like things are moving so quickly.
Are people's attention spans that short? Because I tell you what, the desire for long form content on YouTube has only gone up over the years. You've got these true crime, like what Dave's Lemonade has done several times now, gone through entire trials, and these videos last for 2, maybe almost 3 hours or something. And people will gobble that stuff up. You have critiques of movies, like from Mahler. If you guys don't know Mahler, Mauler, he's got these. I mean, like his breakdown of Multiverse of Madness. I think it runs something like 2.5 or 3 hours or something. And look at the views on that. I mean, if you have content that people find interesting, attention span. I hate to tell you this, it's not as short as you might think it is.
it's really hard to get the same number of quote, enduring hits. You will get hits, no question. But I think it's just harder to do it. But I think overall,
no, it's not harder to do it necessarily. It's harder to get attention for it, sure. But if something's good, actually good, it'll rise up from the depths. We've seen that happen over and over again with these surprise hits and things, right? These tiny little productions that turn into these major monsters of attention. And I mean, look at your own guest, right? Everything Everywhere All at Once. This relatively tiny film came out of nowhere, right? Because people found it good. Now, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's good. People in the chat have given me sort of wishy-washy responses to it, in the sense that, it's okay or it's bad. But yeah, no, you can find gems in the rough, right? But they have to be good. They have to have something to them. They have to get people's attention. They have to have some talent behind it.
overall, there is more of a democratization of these distribution channels. I think we will never have anything like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Back
Exactly. That's exactly what I just said.
in the day, we wouldn't have anything like shows or Squid Game, an international foreign language show become a global phenomenon without the fact that the distribution channels have lowered the barriers. So these hits can happen. They can be long and enduring. They're great. It's awesome for those who are super creative and create awesome stories. But I think it's just harder to get a lot of hits. It's just the distribution environment.
Agreed.
Yeah, I guess behind your question is a certain pessimism that I'll flip and just say that there's like an optimism that I see, because obviously Everything Everywhere was with a mini studio with A24, but it was an indie project that we kind of built from the ground up. It wasn't through the studio system. And I think I love this question because it is this complex where you have to factor in all these different things, and it's on the confluence of technology and users, storytelling, filmmaking to really be able to assess the question well.
It didn't hurt that you had named actresses and stars in that movie, like Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Curtis or anything. Jamie Lee Curtis. That helped a little bit, didn't it?
But what I would say is the kind of modus operandi that Daniels and I have always worked under is just that we are going to tell the story that we think culturally needs to be told now.
We're going to tell the story that we think culturally needs to be told now. Right. Okay.
Rather than what do we think that audiences want and clamor towards the audience, and then technically pander towards the audience, because then that feels really cheap and thin. And we've all seen the studios do the arms race of like, oh, we heard, Studio X is developing this IP. We got to do our version of that at Studio Y.
And that's never worked out. Armageddon, Deep Impact. Dante's Peak and Volcano. Yeah, that kind of competition's never worked out before for a studio if you're chasing money. Yeah, but okay, he brings up a good point. Like, what's the balance between giving the audience what they want and trying to make a statement? Because obviously, at the end of the day, a lot of filmmakers are artists and they want to have a message, they have a vision, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to strike a balance as well. At least in the sense that you're going to try to make something that's successful and accessible and popular. So doing something because it's the story you want to tell, damn the consequences of the box office, I can appreciate that to a certain extent. You did what you wanted to do. You took a shot. Maybe it landed, maybe it didn't. But when it comes to something like established IPs and things, I think you have to cater to the sort of baked-in audience a lot more than trying to make a cultural statement. So in Jonathan Wong's case, it was an original idea, an original story. There's nothing's hanging on the fate of this. No one was expecting it, that kind of thing. Whereas when you have something like, I don't know, Obi-Wan, or let's say Daredevil, or what's another good one? Wednesday. You have a built-in understanding of what people are to expect or hope to expect from an established IP like that. And that's where you really need to lean into the source material, i.e. what the fans liked that turned that property into a popular and viable one in the first place, and not use it as a platform for your cultural statement. I think that's where the dividing line is, right? Between how much do you make a cultural statement versus quote unquote pandering to the audience. Does the audience expect something specific out of the characters or setting that you're working with? And if so, you have to honor that and not try to inject too much, if anything, of your own personal agendas or goals into it. Sort of like what Peter Jackson famously stated when he was asked about, how much of the Lord of the Rings trilogy did they put their own agendas or perspectives into. And obviously there's no 100% perfection, but at least their mission statement was tell the story that Tolkien told as best as possible and leave ourselves out of it. So just my little commentary on that.
And then you just start feeling this kind of self-referential, reductive storytelling that no one wants to leave their house to go watch or even turn it on their TV. Like it's like the joke is like, let's watch Netflix or Amazon and you spend the whole night scrolling and then you just like end up being like, I'm too tired, I go to bed, because nothing is really jumping out. And our goal as storytellers in the indie space or now studio space is to just tell those distinctive stories that aren't pandering to the audience, but just telling something from a real point and a perspective of truth.
Well, wait. And yet you're focusing specifically on some kind of cultural moment or something. You're pandering to the immediate cultural zeitgeist. You just told us that earlier, right? You're looking to hit while the iron's hot and what's going on in the culture now. So you are pandering to a culturally sensitive audience or a current events sensitive audience. You're trying to gather the steam of what's going on right now and put that as the backing to the sales of your production. So don't quite get that one there, right? Because your entire philosophy is fueled by, we're going to tell stories that are culturally relevant to the current zeitgeist. Well, then you're pandering to that audience. You're pandering to the modern audience on the current event, the current issue. Yeah, okay. Also, I like the fact that he kind of gave shade to both Amazon and Netflix when like they got two of the major executives right there.
Yeah, and what I'll contribute just to sort of build on top of that is, in terms of just there being so many different ways that audiences are allowed to view, whether it's film or TV, and how blurry that line gets when you're viewing something from inside of your living room. Uh-huh. I think there's so much more freedom, and we've really opened up the aperture in terms of the way that we tell stories. Television used to be very much defined by a certain number of episodes within a certain number of broadcasters, and it just feels like that's really exploded open in a way that's been inviting for storytellers.
Are you kidding me? Okay, she's from Netflix, right? Okay, well, maybe this is before her time. I don't know. It's been a few years now. But when I was watching the Marvel shows on Netflix, it was always had to be 13 episodes. Like the whole season had to be 13 episodes. Now, in the first season of Daredevil, they made it work. Like each one of those episodes was relevant. It was a continuing story arc, but you had, an almost episodic nature to that first season. But then you look at things like Jessica Jones, where you had 13 some odd episodes and there was maybe 4 episodes worth of story in there. And so you had to stretch everything out and put a bunch of filler in, and it all felt like a waste of time. Give me a break. There's a slotted number of episodes that are necessary and demanded and negotiated. And Netflix isn't all that much different from broadcast TV. I don't buy that.
From the feature side as well, to come and tell some of those stories on the television side as well. So I just feel like it's all coming together in a very organic way, and it's ultimately about storytelling.
No, it's about making money. Come on. I used to have, I used to have like the glitter in front of my eyes about the art of writing. And then I actually talked to some professional authors, and the the scales fell from my eyes pretty quick at that point, about the realities and the pragmatism going on behind the business aspect of it. All right. Yeah, you have to at least be honest that, yeah, it's about telling stories and it's about all this stuff. Yeah, but it's about money too. It's a lot about money, what's marketable, what isn't. And you were talking about identity earlier, right?
Something we talk about is just how Wednesday probably would have been something that we would have seen maybe on the features historically, but it feels like on the television side, the audience sort of had the freedom and their own time to just sort of find it and love it. And
I thought Wednesday was okay, but once you start looking at the behind the scenes stuff, it was going to be a lot worse. If like Jenna Ortega basically took the Henry Cavill approach with the material, in that she looked at the scripts, saw that the character was not being portrayed true to the IP, and made changes. Now, at the time, when I first heard that story, I felt that was a bit unprofessional, just a bit. At the same time, though, once you start looking at the stories behind the scenes and it all, she was trying to protect the brand. She was trying to be true to the character, whereas the writers on the show either didn't know or didn't care about the IP and the sandbox that they were playing in. Overall, the show was meh. It was a terrible mystery. Anybody watching it for about an episode or two could have figured out who the bad guy was immediately, just by context clues and casting. And a lot of the episodes felt like filler. A lot of the plot lines and narrative bounced back and forth in meaningless ways. It could have been, again, about 3 or 4 episodes shorter and more concise and been better. But because it became popular, because of Jenna Ortega, that entire show leans on the performance of that one actress. And unbeknownst to anybody at the time, her efforts behind the scene to try to preserve the character for the show. Otherwise, it wasn't a very good show.
In their homes. And I feel like that's been a real testament just to how this has really opened up in an exciting way.
I would say, having produced films that went to Sundance, Berlin, Venice, and so on, I think that we expected like film festivals to be the ultimate gatekeepers of independent film. And I can tell you, having had movies that were critically acclaimed that didn't find their footing when it came to connecting with audiences beyond the festival circuit, that was like a really interesting lesson to learn. That
well, if you've been paying attention to Rotten Tomatoes over the last several years, and the critic reviews versus the audience reviews in a lot of cases with major blockbusters, and oh my God, this movie is just so amazing and it's a masterpiece, and on and on. Yeah, when you have access media trying to pander and suck up to the studios all the time in order to get their, their backstage passes and their gift baskets and everything else, there's a major disconnect between, what the audience actually finds worthwhile and what the critics are telling us we should find worthwhile. So yeah, and that's been probably going on a lot longer, but it's more noticeable now with metrics that we can see online and, people being able to speak their minds on social media.
The work of an independent producer is not just to get it to the festival, but really thinking about the life of the film beyond it, and the grassroots marketing you have to do yourself to champion your film, even though your distributor or sales agent could be telling you otherwise. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, of course, I've worked in film and now TV, but the other part of my work is I've been an executive at Condé Nast and MTV on the digital side, and I've also directed things on the digital side. And I think the thing that will probably be on my gravestone, should I not get a cremation, is that I was brought to Condé Nast to rethink the content for Vogue, and the first thing I produced was 73 Questions, which is a video series that never seems to end. And I just
well, okay, this is a lot to digest. 73 things. Okay, what? Sorry, I was thrown off track. What are we talking about now?
Directed something for the Met Gala featuring Alia Bhatt, who's an Indian actress. And it was like inside her first Met Gala, it's like an 8.5-minute short doc that instantly has 1 million views. And I will say there is a great satisfaction to make things that have like the immediate result of connecting with people, which counters what Jonathan said about like not catering to, folks per se, and like auteurs and filmmakers can stick true to their stories, but at the same time, just make sure that you're treating audiences with some respect and that they're smarter than they are. And
treating audiences with respect? What? I guess it all comes down to how much exposition you plug into something. Also, I know this is just sort of like a metric of abundance at this point, but 1 million views on an 8-minute video that probably, nobody's ever heard of before and will forget about 10 minutes after they watch it. Does that feel like an accomplishment? I don't know. So a movie star's first Met Gala. Ooh, big. Who cares?
That is also what will allow for great things to travel across medium.
Well, I think that to clarify, because you're right, it's not that we have a disregard for your audience. That's just stupidity.
Well, you weren't really putting any points in the favor of that notion a second ago, were you?
Do that, right? Like, it's not like we're going to make insufferably hard movies to watch. It's like, of course we're going to make it entertaining and fun.
But not care so much about pandering to the audience, right? Because you want to change the culture or make that cultural statement, right? Which isn't pandering to any kind of audience,
But I think it's like the tech algorithm, right? Like the algorithm is designed to keep your attention in the same way that, like, if you have a car crash, you're going to look over there. So if you just optimize for the car crash, your Instagram is going to be 100% car crashes. But what we try to do is to be like, yeah, no, we want to get people's attention, but
yeah, you want to get people's attention by focusing on the cultural car crashes of the moment. That's what you just told us a few minutes ago. You keep paying attention and reading things and watching what's going on so you can strike while the iron's hot at the cultural zeitgeist of the moment. So how is that any different than the algorithm for car crashes? Your own algorithm is to look for the next cultural car crash and then try to capitalize on it. Or am I missing something?
We don't want it in divisive, pandering ways. It's like the opium hit or the like the quick release hit.
But that's exactly what you do. Okay, maybe I'm off, and either in the chat or the comments, if you're watching this later, let me know. Am I completely off base that he's completely contradicting himself now? That his entire creative model is exactly what he's deriding now? Am I off?
But definitely keeping in mind the entertainment value, keeping in your audience, and making good movies for sure.
Very good. Let's talk about how do we make great creative works.
Have talent, skill, and people around you who also possess talent and skill. That's kind of how. Oh, and also hard work.
As you all know, at a systemic level, it starts with who's actually making it.
Oh, systemic. Uh-oh. Okay, so how do you make something great? It really comes down to who's making it. Well, that's technically true.
And so we have several questions around this that I'm hoping all of you can address because you've dedicated your lives to this.
Are we finally getting into the diversity aspect? Have we gotten the preamble out of the way? Are we going to get into the meat of it now?
How do you work through challenges advocating for, let's say, Asian Pacific, but really all traditionally marginalized groups?
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, talent. Most everybody on this panel, save for Ginny Howe, spent the most of their introductory stuff talking about their hard work, the degrees they got, or the accomplishments that they made, and learning and working hard in the industry and so on. Now that's off to the side. Merit, hard work, that's all secondary now at best.
Whether it's in staffing shows or casting, Linda Lee goes further and says, how can you send the elevator down to aspiring producers?
Well, aspiring producers based on what attributes, right? because that elevator is an exclusive elevator, the way that you've just framed this question.
And all of you have done this in different ways. How do you?
Oh, have they? Okay. And don't let the question hang in the air again. Just pick somebody.
You think about it at a systemic level.
Oh, come on, dude. Crickets.
Well, one way we did it at Amazon Studios is we set targets and goals and requirements.
Targets and goals and requirements at Amazon Studios. So quotas?
And be very public about them and hold ourselves accountable. So
very public and hold yourselves accountable. I'm sorry, I don't mean to repeat everything he says, but his audio is so muffled that I feel like it's at least necessary to back it up a little bit.
Not too long ago, we had an inclusion policy. We were very, and it was a diversity across everything, right? In front of the camera, behind the camera, supply chain, vendors, everyone who's working on production. The challenge is measurement, right? We're trying to figure out how do we measure every single production and every single project. I think that continues to be a challenge.
Yeah, so every single project, every single production has to have some kind of measurement for diversity, for marginalized demographics. So again, you're hiring people on the basis of their race, their ethnicity, their gender, etc. You're intentionally structuring the way that you approach projects and business opportunities and vendors and supply chain on the basis of things that are non-determinative of merit and, at least in American law, explicitly forbidden from weighing when it comes to employment specifically. Now, casting for shows and things like that, there's a gray area that's, been legally meddled over for years and years. But just like basic work, people behind the camera, supply chain, transportation, it's things like that, vendors. Okay, keep going.
But that is one way to systemically do it. We built in a green light process where we actually ask the question, are we improving our diversity and inclusion goals with this pickup? And we look at it in the totality of everything we're offering and what we're making, not just a single show. So it's not like we're putting pressure on every show having an Asian character. It's just in the total body of what we're producing.
It's not that we're putting pressure on every show to have an Asian character. No. But you do have metrics for hitting diversity quotas. You do have internal goals and standards which things have to pass through in a filter as to whether or not they qualify for your diversity metrics. But you're not putting pressure on any productions to include specific people on the basis of specific elements of their makeup. No. No, it's not the thing that I just indicated I said we do. It's the other, right.
Is this the right, are we representing the community adequately in what we're releasing every year? So
are we representing the community adequately? Okay, keep going.
That is one way to do it, is you force it. But I think that's hard. I think a lot of other studios that I used to be at will probably say, we're not doing that. There's a legal thing. And
yeah, there is a legal thing. It's called racial and or gender discrimination, also the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We're not going to do that. There's a legal thing. Yeah, but you guys don't care about the legal thing at Amazon? Is that it?
You just kind of have to say, who cares about the legal thing? It's
I mean, I appreciate his candor. I appreciate his honesty. Who cares about the legal thing? We have an agenda we have to push. Wow, who cares about the legal thing? From a high-placed executive at Amazon Studios. All right, well, hey, I'd call this a scoop. Who cares about the legal thing? Maybe that should be, I don't know, a warning flare to some legal entity in the government to take a look at Amazon Studios' hiring practices. Just maybe. When an executive comes out in a public forum and says, to heck with all those laws.
And even if we don't hit those numbers, it's okay to say that we did it. And I think sometimes in the optics of Hollywood, people kind of get scared of making those commitments.
Are you listening to yourself? Right. Well, we don't put pressure on productions to hire specific people, but we really need to hit those numbers, and to heck with the law. Seriously? This is amazing.
Because of not making them. But I actually think it proves to be an opportunity to talk about why. And then we have to be honest about it and figure out how to make it better.
Yeah, be honest about disregarding, employment laws. Sure. That's, again, link to the original broadcast is in the description below on the actual Producers Guild of America YouTube channel.
I think the big that we do a lot of, and it's important, we talk about this a lot.
For somebody who works for Netflix, her streaming capabilities are really low quality.
Something that's a priority, I think, for everyone here. I think what has to happen is there has to be some tolerance and some also enthusiasm for just taking the risks and just doing as well. And to also have some of those things in terms of investing in first-time creators and new storytellers in this medium, and just taking swings and bets forward on people who you really believe in. And I think that is, and you talk sort of about the indie film space as well. And
well, people you really believe in, is there, now, given the framing of the question, people you really believe in as long as they are a particular thing, as long as they fall within a particular demographic, or because those things aside, they just simply possess talent? What are you talking about? And I don't want to have to ask that question, but here we are.
Sort of what Jonathan was talking about too. I do think that the spirit of that needs to really lend itself more into the way that we are taking some of these swings and making some of these bets, because I think the audience surprises us all the time. I think what we intuitively think they are hungry for is not always going to be correct. And I think what really they're looking for is for us to surprise them and to also sort of introduce them into new arenas that historically have not been open before. So
what are you talking about? I know this is high level corporate speak, but still, what? Do you have an example? Like, what's a project that you thought would really hit with audiences and didn't, and contrast that with one that you didn't think would but did? What lessons have you learned?
I feel there's still a lot of work on that path, but we are all in a very, very special moment as it pertains to there being people empowered in these rooms and storytellers that really feel like very bold, distinct voices on the landscape. And
this is all very couched language to avoid actually talking about something specific. Okay. I'm having flashbacks to 2016, 2017 when I was looking at diversity promotional videos.
It's feeling like it's a very inspiring moment, but it's like we've got to just go and take some of these risks as well.
Like what? Like what? Give me an example. You've got 17,000 different shows on Netflix that you could, draw from, most of which people don't even watch, but you have an example?
In terms of risky is, taking a bet on someone who's never created a television show before. Sunny Lee, who created Beef, who has come up through television. This was the first show he created. And, we're so proud of what he was able to accomplish there. So
someone who worked their way up through the industry, paid attention, learned things, and then made a show that was successful. Okay. How? I don't know. I've heard about the show Beef, right? It's a movie, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, it probably falls within the ethnic focus of this panel. But okay, was it any good? I haven't seen it. I know there was a scandal with one of the actors was found out to have said or done some nasty things that nobody knew about before they, made the movie or whatever. But okay, do you want to talk about that a bit more as an example?
Some might deem that risky, but other folks might say this is enterprising and just the way that you are sort of making things happen.
Yeah, usually the people who actually want the thing to succeed because they have a vested interest in it succeeding because they've invested in it, literally, or they're part of it. Yeah, okay. That was a whole lot of not much. Next.
Shruti and Jonathan.
I mean, I agree with what Albert and Ginny said. I would just
What did Ginny say that was worth agreeing with? I want to hear more about what Albert has to say about the whole legality thing.
and it maybe answer it from a different perspective, which is like, be aware of tokenizing.
What? Be aware of tokenizing. Okay, but yet you agree with Albert. You agree with Albert where they have specific metrics and numbers they're trying to hit, yet beware of tokenizing. I don't know that you can avoid it when you set diversity quotas.
Whether you're on the hiring side or you're on the receiving end.
I mean, she's not wrong. Let me just make that plain. She's not wrong. She's making a valid point here, but it's a kind of an odd thing to say after saying that you agree with what Albert just said.
And I think I am well aware when I'm brought into things, because it's like, you're a woman of color, you're South Asian, you're Indian, and therefore that's why we need you. And then I can tell you the sheer cultural work that lands on you when it comes to educating people around you, because that's a big reason why you're brought on, is also exhausting.
You're part of the Asian American Pacific Islander organization here. If your cultural / ethnic identity was not something you were trying to leverage into getting somewhere, why are you here? Okay. Well, I guess my question to our speaker here would be then, if you knew, or if it was that plainly stated to you that you were here because of your gender, your ethnicity, your background, so on, have you stayed on at those jobs? If you were told explicitly that your only value to the project were things that had nothing to do with your personal merit, would you stay on such a job?
So kind of be mindful of and have the awareness to try and figure out, okay, this is a great opportunity, but there's going to be a significant lift as that AAPI person in the room who has to suddenly navigate, why you were brought in.
Well, okay. Well, she's not wrong, but then I'm also curious, why play up those elements of your makeup that are irrelevant by being part of an association that is explicitly created to play up those elements that are irrelevant to your merit, that are just part of your makeup? Why are you here? What is the point of the AAPI and the Producers Guild of America if not to push for people to get jobs based on what they look like, based on where they come from? There's an inherent tokenization risk with that mindset. So it sounds a bit self-defeating. I mean, I appreciate that that's not what she wants to be hired for. That's true. That should be how it works. And yet, here we are.
And I think, the fact that one's even being brought in is at least an improvement, but
the fact that one is being brought in is an improvement. Okay, you just said don't tokenize, but then you say it's an improvement when one, and it doesn't matter which one, right? As long as they fall within that demographic. This is like what I've said all the time. Identity politics is poison. Racial, ethnic identitarianism is poison. You can't escape it.
But I think that there's momentum, that that there are better teams that are being put in place so that there's less cultural explaining that is happening.
Well, okay, which is it? You either appreciate being hired on the basis of your presumed perspective and knowledge because of your heritage, your gender, your race, or we have to stay away from tokenism. Which is it? You cannot have it both ways. You really can't. Now, if you're being hired on as a subject matter expert because people know you have a degree in this, or you lived in a particular country or something and have some personal knowledge that is inherently tied to your ethnicity or your origins or things, but you're being hired for that purpose, that's one thing. If you're being hired for your knowledge, if you're being hired for your aesthetic, right, that's not the aim that we should be having, right? That's not the principle we should be operating under. And yet here, you can't make up your mind. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing?
Hopefully, around certain projects.
Like what? What project benefited from quote unquote better teams on the basis of the racial makeup of the people working on it, and that they were hired on that basis first and foremost? I mean, I'd love to hear an example.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that from my perspective within staffing sets, right? I'm not an executive, so I'm not building out. I'm only like building out movies. So when we are staffing a movie, we just mandate that certain people are hired that are diverse.
So again, you have diversity quotas, and what qualifies as diverse?
Right. And when you make that mandate from on top, luckily Daniels are willing to do that with me. Like, I'm sure there's other directors who's like, no, we don't want someone who hasn't done this before. We want the best person, who ends up usually being a white male, which is we don't want the best person who's done this before, usually being a white male, which is. Did I lose? Oh, weird. My computer froze for a second. Sorry about that.
No worries, we got you.
That might have been a very convenient freeze. Are you gonna continue that thought?
It was the white male. You said white male, and boom.
Yeah, and then yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to do some like, yeah. I don't want to. Anyways.
No. Oh, dude, finish your thought. What were you going to say?
The thing about it is to be able to have those partners who will find those opportunities, who are willing to extend those opportunities.
No. Hold on. You just made a distinction between hiring people who know what they're doing versus hiring people that have no experience. And the people who have the experience and know what they're doing are often white males. Why is... Boy, there's it's so telling, isn't it? Okay, all right.
He's down, like you said, to bring the elevator down, and be willing to teach. So on set, sometimes it's path of least resistance. So it's like, well, we can't have some person who's an intern who's never done this before. We just need to like go path of least resistance. And I'm always willing to say, no, let's go. Let's usher this person along. Let's usher them in, because then they can keep going.
So you do want to take inexperienced people and put them into positions they're not qualified for, so long as they meet your aesthetic requirement and mandate. Now, can you imagine, with that supposed mindset, why things fail right now more than they succeed? Just this, I gotta tell you, it's all with these kind of conversations, these kind of discussions, you always have to wait till about the midway point before all of the sort of glad handing and, sort of kosher PR stuff kind of falls by the wayside when we get down to brass tacks and people actually start telling you what they actually think and how they actually work. This is amazing. First with what Albert Cheng said about the legality stuff, and now with Jonathan Wong and mandates and elevating people who don't have any experience. I mean, there is something to be said about the stowaway on the pirate ship learning everything about what's going on in the production. There's something about taking the initiative, ending up on a set as, a production assistant or some minor level of things, and taking the time to pay attention and ask questions of other people and learn the industry and the process from the ground up, right? So there's a very Horatio Alger, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, admirable thing about that. But in this case, no, he's in the executive top of things. He's in charge of things. And it's like, well, we need somebody who knows what they're doing here. Now let's take this intern and just kind of shove them in and see what they can do, because they have the right look.
But the other thing that I think is really important, that when you're in a position of power, like we are, to really check the people around you and be like, why do you want to hire this Asian person? Why do you want to hire this person of color? And
because they are in those categories of demographic. you're not. Why do you? Okay. Those elements should not be relevant. You want to hire people who know what they're doing, and you want to hire people who have skill and talent. That should be your only litmus test. But that is not your litmus test. You've already told us that. You've mandated a diverse hiring structure. Diverse meaning everybody who isn't white. So your legitimacy on like, oh, why? No, you don't care about why. You just told us you'll put an intern into a position they're not prepared for because you find their look pleasing to you. Come on.
And if it's that you need to just like, whitewash your company or brownwash your company, I think it's important for us when we're empowered to say that's actually not a good thing.
Oh, you don't say. Really? You don't say. Hiring people on the basis of what they look like is not a good thing. Tell me again about your diversity mandate. You just told us you have a diversity mandate. You have specific numbers you're aiming for in every production. But we don't want to whitewash or brownwash everything just for the sake of doing it, but we do have a diversity mandate. What?
To do. What we need to be doing is giving people their ability to be fully three-dimensional characters, fully three-dimensional executives, and not just let's check this box and hire a diverse person.
You just told us you have a diversity mandate. You just told us this. You have a checkbox. Which is it? Do you value people on their aesthetic or not? Do you value them on their merit and set everything else aside or not? Are you even listening to yourself right now? Are you kidding me?
Over here. So when we did it,
when you did it, you mean when you had that checkbox for your production with a diversity mandate?
We were negotiating a deal with Universal, and we just insisted that we were like, let's make sure that we have a green initiative and a diversity initiative.
But we don't have any checkboxes. No, you don't want to have a checkbox.
And when we voiced that before we signed our deal, we found out, oh, they're actually doing that at the company. They already have all these things. And so we're like, great. So we can just link arms with them and really do it in a way that we can not feel like we're fighting against the system, but work with the system towards a new future.
Yes, you've made systemic racism part and parcel with your productions. That's great. That's great. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, well, yeah, boy, this is enlightening. As things go on. All right, I'm going to start winding things down now. We're coming up to the hour and a half mark in real time. I'm at 31:03 on the original broadcast. Wow. I mean, you usually, I don't know why I'm still surprised at sort of very blatant admissions and contradictions like this anymore by high-placed executives and people in companies and productions and organizations where there's absolutely no fear and entirely just this cognitive dissonance over what they think they're doing and what they're saying and what the results are and what the implications are. Albert Chang, oh, that legal thing, who cares? We have quotas, we have numbers to hit, etc. Jonathan Wong, yeah, we don't want to do any checkboxing, but we have a diversity mandate. Shruti Ganguly, she's like, yeah, avoid tokenism, but it's good that we have one in there, and on and on. You cannot balance these scales. You just can't. You can't say you're against systemic racism and then build in diversity mandates into your process. You can't say you're against tokenism, but then celebrate when someone from your category gets into a spot somewhere. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But again, what's the downside? I mean, what consequences is Amazon Prime going to face from this admission from one of its top executives? Anything? No. What consequences is Jonathan Wong going to face as a result of this admission, and telling us also that Universal Studios apparently also has diversity checkboxes, mandates, etc. Nothing. Even though it is written into the law, which Albert Chang doesn't care about, what's the downside? Are there any consequences? Is there any accountability for major studios and organizations coming out in public, stating in no uncertain terms that they practice racial, gender, etc. discrimination in their hiring practices? What I mean, who cares? Right? The law? The law. Whatever. Who cares? This is amazing. I don't know. Should I do another one of these? Take on another section of this in the near future? I probably wouldn't do another Sunday stream on it, but I might do a supplemental at some point. You guys let me know both in chat and in the comments in the future. I'll take a minute here for you guys before I wrap up and go on to call my mother for Mother's Day. Janetti Hellis, boop, boop. Boop, boop, beep-doop. Keeverdam says part 2. I may do a part 2. I feel like there's a lot more within this that might be interesting to look at. Guy in his room, the contradictions and dissonance grows every day. Well, it's because there's no downside. There is no downside to making these admissions. There's no downside to enacting these policies, even though it should be fairly plain as to why you don't want to do this stuff. And Albert Chang even mentioned other studios, no, we don't want to do that because of the legal thing. Oh, who cares about the legal thing? Thank you, Chicago Mike. Question, can you direct this movie? Answer, I don't know, but I'm a person of color. You're hired. Well, I'm surprised that, I guess it's the wrong demographic to be talking about, but I'm surprised Ginny Howe didn't bring up something like Strong Black Lead, which is a program at Netflix, which I think you can guess what the motivation and the agenda is there. The Cleopatra debacle that's currently taking place is a result of the Netflix initiative, or at least in part, Strong Black Lead. And I did a video long time ago. Netflix posted a series of videos about Netflix culture myths. And one of them was about diversity and inclusion, which they eventually deleted not too long after I did my video. So I was very fortunate to find it when I did. And they talked about Strong Black Lead. And this was back in 2018, maybe, thereabouts. And you don't hear about that much. And then, of course, this Cleopatra thing happens. Like, Renovatio, Scribelate, they are not afraid of the law because the legal oversight bodies are doing exactly the same thing. E.g., the official position of the Bar Council of Ireland is now equitable briefing. The Bar Council of Ireland? What's the test for the Bar Council of Ireland? Like going to a bunch of pubs and drinking? Yeah, no, I know. It's this philosophy, this idea that it's okay or necessary or virtuous or principled to proceed like this. This is now endemic in so many levels of our government, of our society, and yet there's that pesky law that's sitting out there that. I tell you what, this is why I've said it before, and I will say it several times in the future. I am very curious to see where the Supreme Court comes down on the affirmative action defense for the Harvard cases that's currently before them. Sometime within the next 2 months or so, supposedly, they're going to issue their ruling. And if the Supreme Court finds affirmative action is unconstitutional and the arguments in its defense are therefore not valid as a legal defense for actions that affirmative action takes, I'm going to be very, very curious to see what happens with all of these plainly stated, publicly championed DEI initiatives and things like our speakers today have said about what they do and the laws they don't care about. I'll be curious to see what happens there. Let's see. Shadowclaw, The Woman King had the same issue. They even wrote history with that movie. Oh, yeah, they rewrote history with that, trying to play up a faction of the worst slave traders in Africa is somehow heroic, right? Because, oh, well, it's a female in power who's also diverse. Therefore, it's always going to be good, and we have to make it look as good as possible, even if historically it's complete nonsense. Sure, why not? Whereas if you see any movie where Christopher Columbus is portrayed as some heroic figure, you'll get outcry out the wazoo, and rightfully so. But, there's an agenda, right? There's an agenda. We have to hit while the culturally iron is hot and so on. Anyway, that's about it for this one, guys. Programming note, you can find me here for sure next Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence, where I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk. And of course, next Sunday, for the next Sunday stream, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. On May 21st, Sunday, May 21st at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, will be the 4th episode of Living on Borrowed Crime, where I talk to true crime content creators, and my guests will be Matt Orchard and Dave's Lemonade. So be on the lookout for that. Should be posted on my YouTube channel. And also tomorrow, Monday, May 15th, is, for all intents and purposes, my birthday. And at some point tomorrow, I'm not sure yet because it is a work day and I've got some stuff to do, but at some point tomorrow, probably the afternoon, I'll be doing a brief little birthday stream just to say hi, talk about some stuff, try to have a couple of guests on maybe to say hello, and that'll be fun. And at least one musical performance. We'll cover that tomorrow. Thank you, Miranda Stone. Thank you so much for your generosity and your help. And Keeverdam, thank you so much for posting tomorrow's stream. Tomorrow's stream? Did I already set up? No, that's my channel, right? Wait, what? Do I have a stream set up for tomorrow? I'm confused. I don't think so. But when I do, I will post it out on Twitter for sure. Oh, and thank you again, Miranda. Sorry, I'm clicking all over the place. Miranda, thank you so much for your generosity and all your help with the channel and the Discord server. That's the other thing too. I have a Discord server, if you didn't already know. And if you'd like to join the Discord server, well, you have your opportunity right in a second here when I put up the link in the chat box. And the Discord server, all you have to do is click on that link. You find yourself on the landing channel. It's called Say Hello. And all you have to do is say the secret word. And the secret word will tell me and my moderators that you watch the show and that you're an audience member and a fan of the show. And today's secret word is mandate. Let's call it mandate. That's a good one. That's a good secret word. So just say mandate there and everything will be set. Oh my gosh. Sorry, 1 second here. I'm waiting for chat to catch up with the rest of the world. Keeverdam, thank you so much for the dancy, happy Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wow-wee! Wow!
That is a drunkle Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Keeverdam, so much for your generosity. And again, guys, take a look at the top of the chat box for the fundraisers. But with that, everyone, I'm going to call it here. Moderators, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or again to the fundraisers at the top of the chat box, thank you so much for your generosity. It really is appreciated. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Please hit the like button on the way out. I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. I hope you're all keeping cool. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.